Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 2, Contents of the Bhagavad Gita summarized. Text 25. Avyaktoayam achintyoayam avikaryoayam achyute tasmadevam viditvainam nanu sochitum arhasi.
It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body.
Text 26. Atha chainam nityam jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam sochitum arhasi.
If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed.
Text 27. Chatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janmamritasya cha tasmadapariharye arthe natvam sochitum arhasi.
One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament.
Text 28. Avyaktaadini bhutani vyakta bharata avyakta dhanani evam tatra ka paridevana.
All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So, what need is there for lamentation?
Asharyavad pashyati kaschid enam Asharyavad vadati tathaiva chanyah Asharyavad chainam anya shunoti Shrutavapi enam vedana chaiva kaschid.
Some look at the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all.
Text 30. Dehi nityam avadyoayam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi.
O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being.
Text 31. Swadharmam api cha vekshya navikampitum arhasi dharmyadhi yuddha cha shreyonyad kshatriyasya na vidyate.
Considering your specific duty as Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And so there is no need for hesitation.
Text 32. Yadrashaya chupapanam swargadwaram apavritam sukhina kshatriya patha labante yuddham idrasam.
O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets.
Text 33. Oh, 32. Um, text 32.
Oh,
Yadrashaya
33 Mataji, I think it's.
33, isn't it? Yeah, sorry. 33. Atha chetvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi tatha swadharmam kritim cha hitva papam avapshyasi.
If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter.
Text 34. Akirtim chapi bhutani kathayishyanti te avyayam sabha, sorry, sambhavitasya chakirtir maranad atirichyate.
People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death.
Text 35. Payad ranad uparatam mam syante tvam maharatha yesham cha tvam bahumato bhutva yashya silagvam.
The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant.
Text 36. Avachya vadamscha bahu vadi tvamsutavahitaha nindastastava samarthyama tato dukhartaram nukim.
Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you?
Text 37. Hato va prapsyashi swargam jitva va bhoksyase mahim tasmad yutishta kunteya yudhaya krita nishchayah.
O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight.
Text 38. Sukha dukha samakritva labha labhau jaya jayo tato yuddhaya yujyasvam naivam papam avapshyasi.
Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin.
Text 39. Esha te abhihita sankhye buddhir yoge tvam imam shrinu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahashyasi.
Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now, listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Partha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works.
Text 40. Neha vikrammanaso asti pratyavayo na vidyate swa alpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat.
In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear.
Text 41. Vyavashatmika buddhir ekeha kuru nandana bahushakha hi anantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam.
Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched.
Text 42-43. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipaschitaha vedavadrata ratapatha nanyad astiti vadinaha kamatmana swargapara janma karma phalam pradam kriya vishesha bahulam Bhogaishwarya Gatim Prati.
Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets. Resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this.
Text 44. Bhogeshwarya prashaktanam taya parhata chetasam vyavasatmikam buddhi samadhauna vidhiyate.
In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place.
Text 45. Traigunya vishaya veda nishtray gunyo bhavajuna nirdvando nitya sattvasto niryoga shema atmavam.
The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self.
Text 46. Yavanartha udapane sarvataha samaplutudake tavam sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijayinataha.
All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them.
Text 47. Karmani avadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhur ma te sango asta akarmani.
You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty.
Text 48. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhi ashityoha samabhutva samatvam yoga achyute.
Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga.
Text 49.
That's
Durena hi avaram
finish 48.
karma.
48, Mataji?
Oh, is it 48? Sorry, thank you. Hare Krishna, thank you. Sorry for any mistake.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Emma Mataji and Sailesh Prabhu. Wonderful recitation. So welcome, dear devotees, to today's session. We continue our reading of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, entitled The Contents of the Gita Summarized. Today we shall be discussing text number 35 in more detail. So I shall share my screen. So hopefully you can now see my screen. As we traditionally do, we will start off by reciting the Mangala Charanam prayers. You can also join in via unmuted mics. If anyone is joining for the first time, in your copy of the Bhagavad Gita, as it is, you would see it's right at the beginning. I think it's page number 1. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Picharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachad Shatadine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So text number, oh, I wrote 22, there's actually 35. Vayadranad uparatam mamsyante tvam maharataha yesham cha tvam bahamato bhutvadyashyasi laghavam. Word for word synonyms. Bhayat, out of fear. Ranat, from the battlefield. Uparatam, seized. Mamsyante, they will consider. Tvam, you. Maharataha, the great generals. Yesham, for whom. Cha, also. Tvam, you. Bahumataha, in great estimation. Bhutva, having seen. Yashasi, you will go. Laghavam, lagavam, decreased in value. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Purport. Lord Krishna continued to give his verdict to Arjuna. Do you think that great generals like Duryodhan, Karna, and other contemporaries will think that you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfather? They will think that you have left out of fear for your life, and thus their high estimation of your personality will go to hell. So we are now in an interesting section. As we have been reading, Arjuna had put forward many arguments why he should not fight. And he had at some point surrendered to Krishna as his guru. And the Lord, in the position of guru to Arjuna, was counteracting and refuting the many arguments that Arjuna had put forward. And Arjuna was giving various arguments against fighting. And Krishna had now countered those arguments by why he should fight. And some of the arguments was that Krishna had refuted the argument of loss of enjoyment. And then we read how actually if you fight and you win, firstly you will get an unrivaled kingdom, and secondly, even if you lose, you'll go to the heavenly planets. So from that perspective, Any way you looked at it, there was more enjoyment awaiting Arjuna if he fought. And then Arjuna had given reasons about sinful reactions. How, if he fought, and he killed his grandfather, and so many reasons. And then the Lord had refuted it. So on the basis of religion, the Lord had refuted Arjuna's argument that it was more religious for him to fight than not fight, because he was performing his duty. And one of the pillars of religion is to perform your religious duty. Now Arjuna had given another argument, and that was the argument of dishonor and how he would be ridiculed if he killed his grandfather, his guru, and other elders and family members. So in this verse, Krishna is saying, and Prabhupada paraphrases the Lord in the purport, you are thinking that out of your compassion, you decide, I am not going to kill my grandfather. I will not kill my teacher. I will not kill my elders. I will not kill my family members. Don't be in such an illusion, thinking, the people thinking, yes, we understand Arjuna's compassion. And in the purport, Prabhupada mentions two of the generals in particular, Duryodhana and Karna. And Prabhupada is saying, don't be in it, Krishna, paraphrasing the Lord, don't be in such illusion thinking that they will think how great you are, Arjuna, by walking away from this fight. They will simply ridicule you. They will laugh at you for walking away and running away from the battlefield. And many of the other speakers, yesterday I was listening to Amritananda Prabhu's class. He spoke very nicely, and he put into perspective that for a Kshatriya to walk away from the battlefield is one of the greatest shames. And there would be nothing but ridicule. One of the qualities of a Kshatriya is that they will never shy away from battle. And here we are not talking only about any Kshatriya. We are talking about Arjuna. He's addressed in the words of the Lord as Maharataha. A Maharati is a Kshatriya. It is a Kshatriya, it's like a title. Like you got in the army, you will get a title like colonel or chief commander. There are various titles one gets according to one's rank and according to one's previous ability. So this title of Maharataha or Maharati, sometimes referred to, that is about the highest title one can get in the military, in the Vedic military. So Arjuna fell in the category of Maharata, meaning, Prabhupada explains, a Maharata is one who can easily fight with 1,000 men at one time and come out victorious. That's a Maharata. And Arjuna is addressed here as a Maharata. And you will see in the earlier chapters also, the other generals, they were all great generals. They also referred to as Maharatas. So imagine a colonel or the chief in command of an army. They're going into battle, and then the chief in command walks away. That will all be front page news. It'll be the greatest ridicule ever for such an esteemed ranking officer to walk away from the battle. And this is actually, it was Arjuna's position. And he was so much overcome by attachment, so much overcome by attachment that he became blind to this very simple fact, to the point he was thinking he could possibly be praised for his compassion. One of the duties of a guru is to take the disciple out of darkness, to shake the disciple into reality. And here the Lord is doing that to Arjuna. And you can see the Lord is using some very significant words here. Bhayat, out of fear. The word fear should not exist in the dictionary of a Kshatriya. And Ranat, to run away from the battlefield. It's interesting when I read this word ran, the English word ran. It seems to have some root in the Sanskrit word ranat. To run away from the battlefield. And Krishna again is using a very emotive words here. Sometimes the guru uses sharp words, piercing words. And here Krishna is saying, run away from the battle. And he's reminding Arjuna, you are a Maharati. And Bahumataha, you are held in great estimation. People think very highly of you. And I'll speak a bit more later about the importance of this great estimation. And lastly, the word Krishna uses, lagavam. Lagava, like Lagava Siddhi, where one can become smaller than the smallest, then is one of the Prapta Siddhis. So Lagava means to become very small, to decrease in size. So again, the Lord is using very significant words. You know, this word Lagavam, you decrease in value, you become very small. This is what's going to happen to you, Arjuna. You are going to become decreased in value if you do not fight. So this principle of fear is totally against where Arjuna should be situated. In the 70s, I think 1971, Srila Prabhupada spoke on this series of verses while he was in London. And in that class, Srila Prabhupada spoke about a great general called Yashomanta. I hope I'm spelling it right. I just heard Prabhupada speak it, Yashomanta. And he was the chief general in the army of Aurangzeb. You know, the great, well, infamous, we should say, a Mughal ruler. So Yashomantan Sen, he was very reputed for his Kshatriya spirit. So once Yashomantan from Sen went into battle, and unfortunately he lost that particular battle. And when the king would go to battle, they would normally lock up the fort in the kingdom, and the queen and the entourage and the women would be in the fort, and the men would go out to fight. So after defeat, Yashomanta, he returned. And normally, and this time he didn't return with the blowing of the conch shell and all the signs of victory that would be there. So he knocked on the door of the kingdom, and the guards opened. And they said, it's me, Yashomanta. And I'm here returning to my kingdom. And they went to the queen, the guard, and said, someone's knocked at the door and he's claiming, you know, he's Yashomanta Sen. And the queen asked him, go ask him, why is he coming back? So the guards went back, and Yashomanta said, I went into battle, and unfortunately, in this occasion, I was not victorious. So I came back. So they relayed that message to the queen. And the queen said, he's an imposter. He cannot be Yashomanta. Because Yashomanta, he would either be victorious or he would die on the battlefield. But he would never return with defeat. So this was the situation with the Kshatriyas. As Prabhupada said, when he went to America, it was victory or death. It was victory or death. There was no question of defeat. Prabhupada went with that spirit. And actually, if you read Srila Prabhupada's letters, in one sense, Prabhupada went with the spirit of being in war. Whenever he would write a letter, he would traditionally write Camp Mumbai, Camp Los Angeles. And he compared to be at war with Maya. And Prabhupada, he had the spirit for the purpose of spreading the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the purpose of achieving victory in the instructions of his Guru Maharaj. Once one disciple, this is the context of which Prabhupada said this, he went overseas to preach, and Prabhupada sent his disciples all over the world, although they were young, to open up centers. But this particular disciple, he came back and he went to Prabhupada and he said, oh, the people in that country, they were not very favorable. They would not listen to Krishna. And he was giving so many reasons for not achieving success in the Krishna conscious mission. And his name was Krishna Das. And after giving all this reason, Prabhupada said, you are not Krishna Das, you are Maya Das. He said, there's no question of defeat. He said, when I came to your country, it was victory or death. That was the amazing spirit of Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada wanted his followers to also have that spirit. So I thought I would just share that interesting story. Now, another very interesting aspect of this verse is Krishna. He's actually, in this verse, is appealing to Arjuna's sense of losing fame, losing reputation, being ridiculed. And ordinarily, on the spiritual path, a desire for fame is not necessarily seen a good thing. In fact, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one of his writings, he says that pursuit of fame is like the pursuit of stool. Fame is like stool for one on the spiritual path. But here we're seeing the Lord is speaking to Arjuna on the basis of reputation. Because ordinarily, reputation and fame is not a good thing. But for a Kshatriya, fame is necessary. If a Kshatriya, one of the purpose of the Kshatriyas was to increase the kingdom, was to increase the wealth of the kingdom. And normally they would go into other kingdoms and they would take over the kingdom, and that king will become their subject, and that king would pay their taxes. So the king and his army would go. And normally the reputation of a king would precede him. And if a king went into battle and he was very reputed for being victorious. If he would go to some kingdom and he would declare war, then the incumbent king would say, "Oh, okay, we have no chance here. Rather, we submit and we come under the kingdoms." Or if a king who was not very reputed would go and try to oppose, then he would meet in every circumstance, he would meet a challenge. And in one sense, that's not very good, because every challenge, they would be lost, and so on. So for a Kshatriya, fame is important. Knowledge of the capability of a Kshatriya is very important. And actually, one of the reasons Arjuna was so famous was that the Lord actually became his charioteer. And one of the reasons everybody said Arjuna is so great, that even the Lord became his charioteer. Obviously, Krishna's position was never decreased. The Lord's position is always supreme. But in one sense, Arjuna losing his reputation was an insult. Is actually also decreasing the reputation of the Lord, the name and fame of the Lord. The duty of a devotee is to always increase the name and fame of the Lord. As Srila Prabhupada says in one lecture, what is the symptom? The prime symptom, the main symptom of love? Prabhupada says the main symptom of love is the devotee wants to see his Lord's name and fame widespread. So by Arjuna, allowing himself to be put in this position of ridicule was actually a disservice to Krishna. Because Krishna now, instead of becoming the charioteer of a Maharathi, he was now going to become the charioteer of someone who was going to be ridiculed. So even fame can be used in the service of Krishna. If a disciple becomes famous for his efforts in spreading Krishna consciousness, he automatically increases the glory of the spiritual master. Because the disciple, he gets his empowerment from the guru. So sometimes a disciple will make big endeavors to do something great, not so that he himself will become famous, but for the fame of his guru, for the fame of the Lord. So we see another insight, and I was listening carefully to what Srila Prabhupada said in his class, and I picked this up, that Srila Prabhupada was saying that how Krishna had become Arjuna's charioteer was very, very important. So it was ridicule not only for Arjuna, a great ridicule, but it would also be a ridicule for his family and for his best friend, and his Lord and Master Krishna. Now, the interesting aspect of this verse is that Krishna, he's instilling in Arjuna this point, this principle about a Kshatriya never walking away from the battlefield, never running away from the battlefield, and the great ridicule that comes from doing this. But the irony is that Krishna did that. Krishna once ran away from the battlefield. And Krishna is very famous as Ranchor. the Lord that ran away from the battlefield. Actually, in temples, especially in Gujarat, there are deities called Ranchor. And I just wanted to, but the Lord's pastimes, normally when someone runs away from the battlefield, it is a case of the greatest ridicule. But Krishna, all of the Lord's activities are glorified. And this is the only situation where someone became greatly glorified and is worshipped for running away from the battlefield. So I thought I'll just spend a few minutes reading from the Krishna book about this pastimes of the Lord running away from the battlefield. So bear with me, I'm just trying to see if I can identify that. And I'll just read. So this is from the Krishna book. And the context is Jarasandha. He hated Krishna. And he was always attacking Krishna. And he had attacked Krishna 17 times previously. Actually, that was one of the reasons the Lord moved the kingdom from Mathura to Dwaraka. He was seeing that the residents of Mathura, they were constantly being faced with this attack from these kings. So the Lord moved to Dwaraka later. But before that, let's read. So meanwhile, Jarasandha again attacked Mathura, this time with bigger divisions of soldiers, numbering 23 Akshohinis. And Akshohini is thousands of elephants and thousands of soldiers. He came with never before. So he came with 23 Akshohinis to attack Mathura. Lord Sri Krishna wanted to save Mathura from the 18th attack of the great military divisions of King Jarasandha. In order to prevent further killing of soldiers and to attend to other important business, Lord Krishna left the battlefield without fighting. Actually, he was not at all afraid, but he pretended to be an ordinary human being frightened by the immense quantity of soldiers and resources of Jarasandha. Without any weapons, he left the battlefield. Although his lotus feet were as soft as the petals of the lotus flower, he proceeded for a very long distance on foot. This time, Jarasandha thought that Krishna and Balaram were very much afraid of his military strength and were fleeing from the battlefield. He began to follow them with all his chariots, horses, and infantry. He thought Krishna and Balaram to be ordinary human beings, and he was trying to measure the activities of the Lord. Krishna is known as Ranchor, which means one who has left the battlefield. And in India, especially in Gujarat, there are many temples of Krishna which are known as temples of Ranchorji. Ordinarily, if a king leaves the battlefield without fighting, he is called a coward. But when Krishna enacts this pastime, leaving the battlefield without fighting, he is worshipped by the devotee. A demon always tries to measure the opulence of Krishna, whereas the devotee never tries to measure his strength and opulence, but always surrenders unto him and worships him. By following the footsteps of pure devotees, we can know that Krishna, the Ranchorji, did not leave the battlefield because he was afraid, but because he had some other purpose. The purpose, as it will be revealed, was to attend a confidential letter sent by Rukmini, his future first wife. The act of Krishna leaving the battlefield is a display of one of his 6 opulences. Krishna is the supreme powerful, the supreme wealthy, the supreme famous, the supreme wise, the supreme beautiful. Similarly, he is the supreme renouncer. Srimad Bhagavatam clearly states that he left the battlefield in spite of having ample military strength, even without his militia. However, he alone would have been sufficient to defeat the army of Jarasandha, as he had done 17 times before. Therefore, his leaving the battlefield is an example of his supermost opulence of renunciation. And dear devotees, you can read this beautiful pastime, how the Lord is chapter number 51 in the Krishna book, and how the Lord climbed the mountain. Jarasandha followed him, set fire around the mountain peak, thinking that Krishna and Balaram, they would have to surrender or they would be burnt. And the Lord, displaying his supreme opulence, he jumped from the mountain together with Krishna and Balaram. And this is celebrated. The only occasion where someone running away from the battlefield is celebrated. So I've gone slightly over today. I'll stop here. I'm not sure if anyone's got any questions or reflections or comments. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Amazing. Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
And absolutely no comments or observations, just a big thanks.
Thank you for your kind words, Sandeep Prabhu. Anyone else? Any comments, realizations, reflections? Okay.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Meena Mataji.
So why Krishna run away from like 18 times from like in a battlefield?
No, he didn't run away 18 times. 17 times he very easily defeated Jarasandha.
Yeah, he's defeated, and then why 18 times he has to like?
Prabhupada just said that in the purport. He had a plan to meet Rukmini.
Oh, okay, that's the reason. Okay.
Yeah, he had a plan, and then you can read Krishna book. It's nicely, very nicely explained there.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
Hare Krishna, just something that has been, I'm thinking that in the purport it says that if Arjuna wins, he will go to the heavenly planets.
Yes.
But we don't want to go to the heavenly planets. We want to go to Golok Vrindavan. But it is just a generic word that is being used for.
Yes. The Lord is explaining a general principle here.
Yes, okay.
So Arjuna was saying, if I fight, I'm going to suffer. So one of the arguments the Lord was saying, no, you'll never suffer. Any Kshatriya who's fighting for the purposes of Dharma, who dies on the battlefield, he is guaranteed in the least to attain the heavenly planets. So heavenly planets is higher than earthly planet. So any angle you look at it, you will not be worse off, you'll be better off. So the Lord is speaking from a general principle there, for a Kshatriya.
Hare Krishna.
Specifically. Yes, Prabhu.
Sorry, Prabhuji, Neelam has a question.
Okay. So Puja Mataji, just 1 minute, Prabhu. I'll just finish off with Puja Mataji and then Neelam Mataji. Does that answer your question, Puja Mataji?
Yes, I thought it was just a generic
Yes, it
word,
is.
heavenly, rather than anything specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
My other thing was, Jarasandha must have been sort of quite stupid or silly to understand that Krishna is running away because of his great army. So, having been defeated 17 times, so it sort of shows how sort of his mental status and his low intelligence, I think.
You hit it on the head, Puja Mataji. He was completely in Maya, thinking he could. Yeah. Krishna was afraid of him.
Yeah.
Even after being defeated 17 times and sent back home.
Yes.
You know, he was so much in illusion and so much wanting to defeat Krishna that he thought this time he got Krishna.
Yeah. And the last thing was that parents are from Gujarat, and you reminded me about this Ranchod Rai temples in Gujarat. So that's the sort of realization has come through that after so many years, you realize this word again, apart from my parents. So thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So Neelam, Mataji, you can ask your question now, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I just wanted to know this today Jagannath ji, Baldev and Subhadra,
Yes.
they do that hati, I don't know how to say hati kind of,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, the Vesh Why do they do that? I think there's a story behind, right?
Yeah, there's a whole pastime about
Please, could you
Lord.
tell us? Yeah.
I do not know it off the top of my head, Mataji. I've got a book which explains it, so I would rather read it and make myself familiar with that pastime again. And I'm also facilitating tomorrow. Maybe if you remind me, I will recite that tomorrow.
Sure, I will remind you because I really am very curious to know. So,
All right. Okay.
thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Vani Mataji. Nice to see you today at the temple.
Yeah, same to you, Prabhu. Prabhuji, you know, there's another reason why Krishna left battlefield is, I don't know if I'm, just correct me if I'm right, that, you know, like because Krishna had his, you know, greater plan, that because Jarasandha was also holding there so many, you know, thousands of queens, princesses.
Yes.
So, and to release and to release them also, you know, like Krishna, isn't it?
Yes,
Krishna
that one.
released after
Yeah.
killing Jarasandha, they release, but he has to be killed by Bhima, and that's why Krishna is not killing in 18th time, but he let go, and then he created this occasion. Then, you know, like Bhima, when they went, you know, Arjun, Krishna, and Bhima went as a Brahmana,
Yeah.
and then he was killed by Bhima. So that was Krishna's plan. So that's why he didn't kill at that time the Jarasandha.
Yes, you're correct, Mataji. Krishna, the Lord achieves many purposes in his one activity. So yeah, thank you for reminding us also of that purpose. Because Krishna could have defeated him and killed him the very first time, but Krishna was keep defeating him. So there are the reasons. Thank you for sharing that, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, there is something in the chat box. Can I read it?
All
for
right.
you?
Yes.
Are Ranchor and Ranchor Dry the same? That's the
Yes, if you're referring to Ranchodrai, the deity of Krishna, it's the same. I'm not sure if there's another Ranchodrai you're referring to, but Ranchodrai, yes. Krishna is sometimes they call him Ranchodrai.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. I don't see there's any other
Hare
question.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Jolly Mataji.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the verse so far. Everything is flowing through this honor, dishonor. What it means. Krishna explaining if Arjuna didn't follow his what he's ordained to do as a Kshatriya,
Yes.
he'll be dishonored, and dishonor is the worst thing you could do. You might as well be dead. I mean, that is quite severe, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. But it actually opened his eyes in a way that
Yes.
yeah, I mean, he from a friend to a guru,
Mhm.
and surrendering, as they say, surrendering, or what should I take shelter of Krishna. In a way, he ended up feeling helpless. So he showed his helplessness, and that was the key, wasn't it? Humility and backing down in a way that I will serve you, Krishna, because I realize you're the greatest. You're the one that we need to look up on and follow your instructions.
Yes, that's true, Jolly Mataji. Because Arjuna is taking on our position. And they say the first step in rectification and progress is to realize your situation. And Arjuna, although in the beginning not fully, but Krishna is gradually wearing away at his illusions and
Yes.
reviving him to his real position.
Wonderful. Yes. It's a good lesson to learn. Thank
Yeah,
you,
for all of us.
Prabhuji. Yeah.
For all of us. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada says we should always think that we are a fool in front of the spiritual master. We should not act like a fool, but we should think that we are a fool. We know nothing. We are an illusion. That's the mode of a disciple. And when we enter spiritual life, when we enter our study of the Shastras in that mood, that's when we become proper recipients for knowledge. Thank you for bringing that point out. So dear devotees, we'll stop here. Thank you very much. We will conclude with Vaishnava pranams. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, so they are full of compassion for all fallen conditioned souls. Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Ki
Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everybody.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna, all
Krishna.
devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Prabhuji. There is just a last like kind of question come up in the charge. Can I
Yeah, from Surabhi. What I'll do is I'll pick it up and maybe we will discuss it tomorrow.
tomorrow? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.